you are listening to the AK Compass, guiding listeners through evolving ideas, directions. Your hosts are Carolina Zacco, communications and sustainability expert with 10 years living abroad and a love for traveling.
And Agnes Gardany, journalist who regularly covers many sustainability and travel-related topics.
In this podcast, we will discuss exciting destinations and social and environmental topics from all around the world, along with related non-political current affairs. Our goal is to provide informative and engaging interviews about travel, sustainability, and more.
We will bring you many people from different walks of life, sharing their stories from trips and living abroad. We also invite experts from all across the sustainability sector.
We would like to thank our sponsor, the Sweet Home Studio, for making this podcast possible. Their mission is to bring important social topics to Hungarian audiences. They also give new podcasters a great price to support more valuable content. They are based in Budapest, offering full technological support and a great space to make podcasts. Dear listeners, today we have a very exciting guest. Dr. Agnes Surami-Kovács is the founder and chair of the Will Foundation for Women Leaders, a nonprofit launched in 2024 to support women managers and executives in Hungary and the wider CEE region. She brings more than 20 years of leadership experience in various sectors, which she now channels into building programs that strengthen women's representation and impact in senior decision-making roles. Agnes, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor.
So first off, what key steps and turning points shaped your career before founding the Will Foundation?
My career was not a very linear one. I was a very perfectionist student, a bit of an overachiever at university. I studied finance and marketing communication and also law. And at that time, there was a TV show called Ally McBeal in the Hungarian television. And I was very impressed by that TV show. And I had this very naive thought that legal work would look a bit like that TV show. Of course, I knew that it wouldn't look exactly the same, but I thought that it would have similar elements. So I started my first job as an internship at one of the largest Hungarian legal firms. And it didn't have to be a long time that I came to the realization that real life doesn't look like a TV show. I never got to step inside of a courtroom. I was doing very well, so to say, boring legal research. So after a while, I reevaluated the situation and I decided to turn to my first diploma, and I researched management associate or management leadership programs in Hungary. And Citibank's management associate program was really a good opportunity. And I was very fortunate that they actually accepted me to this program. And that's how I started my career. Later on, I was approached by Deutsche Bank after 5 years at Citibank, where I learned a lot and had wonderful work with corporate clients. I was approached by Deutsche Bank to lead one of their business units. And I was actually 30 by the time I was invited into the Hungarian board. So my career was really shaping nicely. I enjoyed it a lot. But on the other hand, I knew from the very start, ever since I was a small child, that I wanted to have a family of my own. And I wanted to have, a large family, actually. So it was a bit frustrating that I felt the pressing of time to start to have the family that I so much longed for. And on the other hand, I didn't want to let go of my career. So it took a little while until we decided with my husband that I would concentrate on having the family we dreamed of. And that position that I was in did not allow me to concentrate enough time to my children. So I had to decide which path to follow. So after I became pregnant with our first child, I decided to switch off my professional side and concentrate on family. But I didn't know myself quite good enough because I couldn't leave mm, the word of work for good. So there were always projects that somehow found me or I found them. I wrote a book about exceptional women who, beside having a family, did something for society that was also meaningful and that created value. I also took part in launching an internship program for business graduates. So I did a lot of things pro bono for my own joy. And when my youngest was 8 months old, an old acquaintance approached me with the offer to give a new life to the Money Compass Foundation. They were at a bit of a dormant state at that time. And it was just such a nice professional task that I just couldn't say no to. So that's how I returned to the working world after having my children. And I really enjoyed that part of my career. I couldn't work part time because it was a leadership role, but I could work very, very flexibly. And I had a lot of support from not only the mm, leaders I had at that time, but also at other workplaces to be able to work very flexibly. So that's how actually my career shaped. I was always trying to create value through my work. I think that was the main theme.
That's really nice to hear that they helped a mother to be able to cope with handling the family and the career in the meantime.
Yes, without that, I don't think I could have went back to the kind of work that I did.
Yes, and it's actually very important to give not just women, but anyone whose personal life requires flexibility to be able to work and then also balance their private life, or with better words, integrate their private life with their work life. So
I
I'm glad that
strongly
you
agree with
found
that.
that.
I very strongly agree with that.
Thank you. So we are interested also in the start, how you started the Will Foundation. Why did you decide to create the Will Foundation in 2024, and what gap did you want to fill for women leaders in Hungary and the CE region?
Leadership development has somehow always been part of my career. Not just because I started my first real job, which was not an internship but a full-time job at Citibank's Leadership Management Associate Program, but somehow I always wanted to learn through official programs as well, not just on-the-job training. So I always sought out these opportunities, and at several points of my career, I was responsible for designing educational programs and twice for designing leadership development programs. So this was something that was kind of close to my heart. And the other subject that was really staying with us all along is work life balance, as we mentioned. In my previous work, we started a podcast series with women who are, well, either influential leaders or influential people in Hungarian society who have children and could all somehow manage balance motherhood with their professional side, and talking about them, how they could do it, which were the hardest parts, how they overcame the challenges. And I was very excited when I could first attend the CSW event, the Commission on the Status of Women at the UN. And I wanted to diligently read everything I could to prepare for that meeting. So I read the UN's recommendations for Hungary, how Hungary could help women. And there were a lot of recommendations for all different types of fields, of which I'm not an expert. But when I read that they recommend Hungary to provide leadership development programs for women, I felt that this is something where maybe I could add value, where my experience and my passion could create something that actually would lead to change. I don't think I can by myself change the whole world, but I do think that I have responsibility to do whatever I can to be part of that change. So I started to think about how such a program could be designed, and I was putting together a professional concept at that time just out of curiosity. I also attended several programs at Yale School of Management and Harvard Business School to learn how these programs are made and operated. And at the end of 2023, before turning 50 next year, I decided that I would like to dedicate the next phase of my professional career to this cause. And I had a wonderful supporting professional network, not just women, but men as well, who actually helped me helped me with this decision and helped me get the courage to start this foundation. So that's the origin story.
That's great because you did so much background research and you went to the right people and the right conferences. And it's great that you actually have research and the UN backing you up with the Will Foundation.
I wouldn't say they are backing me up because we don't have a formal agreement or anything like that, but they know about the Will Foundation. I made sure that they know that there's something that they started in a way that they inspired in Hungary. And I hope that sooner or later we can become an association, a foundation that is associated with the UN somehow.
I mean, their values and the end result of their research back up what you are doing.
Oh, yes.
So, yes, I understand you don't have the formal cooperation yet, but who knows in the future?
I hope it will become part of our future.
I would like to bring in a topic, sustainability, which is a key topic in our podcast. In your opinion, what's your perspective on the relationship, if there is any, between women's leadership and sustainability in business?
I think there is a connection. I don't view sustainability as a purely compliance issue. I think compliance is the basis for everything. So complying with regulations is a must. That's something that you don't even have to question. But the way I view sustainability is a little bit further back, and I think the basis lies within how decisions are made. So, how you take into account all different long term aspects of your decision, on whom it affects, on how the people involved in either the decision making itself or affected by the decision will be able to maintain a balanced, healthy life. So I think sustainable decision making and sustainable leadership will lead to sustainable business, and vice versa. Unsustainable leadership will inevitably lead to unsustainable business because it can lead to higher turnover, burnout, reputational risks, and efficiency will necessarily lag, decrease, and at the end, the business will just become unsustainable.
From your experience, what business value does diverse leadership bring, especially when women are present at the top decision-making circles? Because in many households, for example, women make decisions about what to buy, and also there are some typical decisions that men make in a family. But women have, even though their salaries are typically lower, their decision-making power is higher. So how do you see this in this diversity and leadership perspective?
You touched a very good point because actually, I would stress three very important aspects of how women and the presence of women in leadership bodies can actually help corporates. When we started the work of Will Foundation, I always like it when our programs, The opinions we express are based on research. So we started with a research that had two phases. One was a literature review, and the other was a field study. And this literature review first mapped out the status of women globally, regionally, and locally. And we also looked at what benefits women can bring to companies. A higher level of women in leadership can bring to companies. And one of the most important factors is, like you said, women make the majority of consumer decisions. Uh, and if you do not include them into the decision-making bodies, you just lose touch with the basis of your with the base of your consumers and with your customers. So that's just simply not smart to do that. It's smart to include those you want to sell to. So that's one strong selling point. The other is women usually okay, so decision-making bodies where there's a fair representation of women, especially if it reaches 30%. That's where the real value starts to appear, starts to show. Overall, may make a much better financial performance than those bodies who are unbalanced. And we are talking about women now, but I would like to say that I have two sons as well. So wherever men are underrepresented, I always stand for them as well, because having different perspectives, having different opinions represented is very important. As yet, even in industries which are mainly dominated by female workforce, the management still stands to be male dominated. But if there were cases where men were seriously underrepresented, I would definitely advocate for them as well. And another strong point is the strategic dimension. Companies who are mainly led by men usually tend to be more focused on mergers and acquisitions on scale, whereas companies led by women also like to look at how to be innovative, how to develop products. And this is, of course, good for the company. So, in my view, being inclusive or balanced is not only fair, but is also the smart way.
This 30% of women, which you would recommend everyone to have among their board members, is it true for all the sectors?
I think it's a general rule of thumb. And also, there's a very, very different sectors have different aspects. So this is not something that I would say that it needs to be kept always at all times. But if you want to have a higher, goal or just a goal that you would ideally want to reach, that's what I would recommend you to have in mind.
And how is the wheel program structured? And also, how does taking part in the Harvard Women Leaders Advancing Together program in Boston influence participants' views on leadership, sustainability, and working in an international environment? If you can talk about all the programs you have.
Basically, although we wanted to build a platform for helping women, we have research, we have awareness raising programs. Our flagship program is the WHEEL program, and that's where we have this Harvard element that you mentioned. And when I was researching how the best women's leadership programs work, I thought that if someone has invented the wheel, we don't have to invent it ourselves as well, but we can actually, connect with the with the maker of the wheel and learn it how to do it. So I thought that the best combination for a really world-class program would be to build on the already available resources and to somehow make it our own. So that's why our program starts at the Harvard University Division of Continuing Education, where our participants can be part of an international group. They can gain international global perspectives. They can build their professional network globally. Participants from all over the world are participating in that program. We also organize so-called field trips, corporate programs for them at New Balance, for example, or at Boston Consulting Group, where they can talk to actual leaders, how they organize companies at this global international level, and then they come home and they connect with actual Hungarian prominent business leaders and academic leaders, and they cover 18 topics, which are important for all leaders, but which are especially significant for female leaders, like avoiding self-sabotage, how to become confident in your decisions or with your decisions, how to advocate for yourself and things like that. So this combination of international and local knowledge is, I think, what makes our program unique and especially useful for our participants.
Thank you. So you explained a lot about what your work and your collaboration is with Harvard, but I'm interested if you could just briefly explain how the participants influenced in terms of their views of leadership, their sustainability in this international environment, and also these leaders they're coming out of your program. Are they willing to be international leaders? Because there are some people who are like, no, I would just like to stay home and stay in the country and stay on that level. So if you could just in brief explain that, that would be great.
It depends on how you define international. So they might not necessarily want to have an international career, meaning that they want to move abroad and start, careers there. But some of the leaders that participate in our program have actually local businesses. So they are also business owners, and they are indeed looking for international expansion. And in that way, this program is especially useful for them to learn how to operate across different cultures and how to work with people from different cultures. They already know that at one level, but they can perfect this knowledge through our program. So I think this part is actually very beneficial, and also it gives you a kickoff start, which is always a nice thing to do, puts you in a concentrated phase, and then it gives a nice entrance, and then we can deepen the knowledge locally. So that's how it works.
And how about sustainability? It was also part of
Oh, yes.
what you're interested in.
Yes, I think what we can learn through the program is how to view decisions on the long term and how to avoid short-sighted, short-term decision making. So that's one of the key aspects of how the program connects to sustainability. We train our leaders to be to play on the long run.
What special value does the American education system add for Hungarian leaders who want to lead sustainably?
I don't think American education is necessarily better than Hungarian one, but due to the fact that business in the US, in America, has been uninterrupted for a very, very long time, they had the opportunity to master their business education and to really build it into a system. And I love it when you learn about the system and then you can make it your own. I don't know whether you saw the early works of Pablo Picasso. I was really surprised when I first saw his early works. It was very conventional. It was masterful in a very, very, very conventional way. So he learned how to paint conventionally, and then he could, make it his own, develop his own style.
Thank you. So, to close, what advice would you give women who aspire to become leaders in their own field?
First of all, I would like to encourage them to be very conscious about their own strengths. Women are often encouraged to work on their weaknesses, but when you are told not to think about the elephant in the room, you necessarily start to think about the elephant and it just becomes bigger and bigger. So when you're concentrating on, avoiding making mistakes, then you don't really build on your strengths. But if you consciously concentrate on your strengths, that helps you grow as a leader. And also, on the other hand, do not forget who you are. So do not try to evolve into someone you are not, but you have to be conscious about evolving in a way that you stay authentic and you still stay yourself. You just have to find your own voice, building on your own strengths.
Agnes, thank you so much for these amazingly wise advices. And I really like the way you're thinking about developing women and developing people, because women also develop other people and their children. So I think this discussion was very inspiring. And I wish you the best with the Will Foundation.
Thank you very much.
Really
It was an
good.
honor and pleasure to be here. I really enjoyed it as well. Thank you.
That was it for today's episode. You've been listening to the AK Compass, guiding listeners through evolving ideas and directions. I'm Karolina Tsako.
And I'm Agnes Gárdonyi. Subscribe, rate, and review if you'd like to support us. Thank you for listening.